that we often don't see just how incredible this world is around us. In fact, I see it. I see people who have been given a grave prognosis of not long to live, and all of a sudden they wake up to life. All of a sudden it's like the coin drops. And if you run the science on this too, how improbable it is that we exist, it's crazy. It literally is impossible that you are here right now, that I am here right now, that everyone who's watching or listening to this, it's improbable. So like you literally are a miracle, a walking miracle. And this experience and perceiving the life and having these experiences with family, with friends, even with enemies, is absolutely the game of life. It is absolutely stunning.
I'm Shreya Parekh, and this is Empower Her, the podcast for women over 35 who want to take control of their health and wealth. Join me and my guests as we share insights, resources, and ideas to help you break free, learn more about yourself, and live your best life while closing the gender gaps. Hit follow to stay connected and sign up for free emails on the Empower Her website to supercharge your journey. Curious about what a death midwife is and how it can connect to your grief journey? Ever delved into dreams, psychedelics, or transpersonal psychology to navigate life? Join me for a fascinating conversation with Carr, a published author and TEDx speaker specializing in dreams, death, altered states of consciousness, and psychedelic therapy. Tree is certified in psychedelics, altered states, and transpersonal psychology, and is a CPD certified Death Doula. Get ready for a super insightful conversation. Tree, welcome to the Empower Her podcast. It's great to have you on. Please, could you talk a little bit about your journey from what you were doing to what you're doing now? That would be great. Thank you so much.
Hey, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me on board. Yeah, it's funny how life can be. You can move through so many different chapters of life. Like it's almost like a book or a film. And I've been many different things in my journey of life so far. Almost turning 52. So I've had a lot of different professions and a lot of different roads that I've followed my whole life. I'm currently in the zone of my life. When I turned the age of 40, I moved into a zone of life of giving back, of service. So at age 40, I moved into the path of a death doula, and also into the zones of transpersonal psychology and penning books on dreams and dream work and all of those wonderful zones that help support people. But before my life moving into these transpersonal zones of guiding people, I worked in the creative industry. So I worked in the music industry. I played in loads of different bands and was a DJ for like 7 years in London. So really found my creative side was really what drove the way I made money. And I also worked in the film industry as well as a producer, director as well, working in films, and ran a business with my partner in the early 2000s in London. I had a film shop in London that people could join as a film club. So yeah, that was all of my 30s. And in my 20s, I was, a creative. I worked in fashion styling, and I worked with vintage clothing, and I was really big in the rave scene in terms of traveling and part of that counterculture from 1990 to 95, and that whole psychedelic scene that came with all of that, and of course music. And painting. I sold paintings when I was in my 20s. And so I've been many different things, always with a creative feeling, because I think I was just set up that way, the way I was born. I kind of just was more of a creative type than I was ever going to be like an accountant or a lawyer. But yeah, life is interesting. It pulls you into these different zones, and that at the age of 40 in 2012, the universe really just collated a lot of my experiences personal experiences and then synchronicities all through my life to come to a moment where I switched into helping others, at 40.
Yeah.
And I haven't stopped since, so I'm still doing it.
That's fantastic. I mean, wow. It seems like you've been through different transitions at different stages of your life, which obviously I think a lot of women do go through that, especially when I feel like, during their mid-life, whether that's your 30s or 40s, they get to a stage where they start thinking, hold on a minute, what am I doing? What do I really want? Who am I? They start thinking about these things. I know I certainly did. And that's what drove me to do what I'm doing now. And I know it's always, what I'm doing now is always kind of run through me from a very young age. But I just kind of followed a path that I thought I wanted to follow when I was younger, like we do. And really took a step back now and thinking, what am I about? What do I really want? Which is where I am now. But anyway, enough about that. What I'm really interested in is what you do, because what drew me to you were the different things that I'm super interested in, and I've never really heard about a specific thing that you talked about, which is a death doula. That is something completely new to me, and I'm sure the people listening probably haven't heard of that either. So could you talk a little bit about that? That would be great. And of course, there'll be lots of other things that come from that too.
Yeah, the death doula. So a lot of folks, they hear the word death and they go, oh, that's creepy. I don't know what that's all about. I feel a bit like afraid of what you are, perhaps. And then the word doula, which a lot of people don't really know unless you've heard of a birth doula or a birth midwife, and then you might know that word. The word's actually a Greek word. It means a woman who serves. And so a death doula is, effectively that type of role, a person who helps another person who is moving through death. Just like a birth midwife helps the mother bring the baby into the world, the death midwife is there to help the dying person move on and have a beautiful death. And so there's other words to describe this role. There's also the end of life doula, the death midwife, the soul midwife. There's a lot of different ways to describe this role. It is a person-centered approach to death and dying. You effectively are like a counselor or a companion in some sort, in some paths, that is there to help with the emotional and the psychological and the existential and pragmatic zones of death and dying. And, there's a lot of help in modern times, in modern medicine, to help people who are dying. It's mostly like hospice care, end of life care, but it's more centered around pain management and pain control and making sure a person's physically comfortable on their deathbeds. But there's not so much help when it comes to just a person-centered space holder who's there to help, keep company or help have conversations or help talk about emotions or the existential underpinnings of death and dying, and even there to help with practical and pragmatic stuff too, that can be helpful to the family, especially. Yeah. And so, although, with hospice work, it's amazing, it's wonderful that we are able to have this. I think a lot of hospice nurses and workers often, they're there, they can only do so much. They can only do so much, and their role is mostly around the nursing aspect, the medical aspect of the hospice care. So this is where the death doula comes in, to sort of bridge the gap, or to space hold for the more person-centered, emotional and psychological, and for the family too.
Yeah.
And these nurses, although they very much obviously care and really do get emotionally invested, they're under the watch and their time management, so they can't sit and give energetic and emotional feelings and support to a situation. They have to get to their next patient. So it's really about that, but it's not so much just about like around the deathbed. It is also around all the other pivotal moments through the journey towards dying. So I support clients who, they might be given a prognosis and they're not on their deathbed yet, but they would like to have some sessions around just coming to grips with the fact that they've been given a timeline of prognosis towards a final day. And that can, throw a person into a very existentially challenging and sometimes dark place, because what a thing to hear, right?
Yeah.
What a thing to hear. You have 6 months left to live. And so the death doula can really help support in that zone. And that's where I come in too. So people who are afraid, people who have stress, anxiety around it, who want to just chat and talk. And then, of course, I also help with family members too. So it can be the family members who are supporting a loved one who is dying, and it's very difficult and there's a burden there. I help with also not just emotional and psychological aspects of death and dying, but I also help with the practical and the pragmatic. That can be anything, really. It depends on the situation. So with some clients, it's like I've helped do some Swedish death cleaning, around the house. And Swedish death cleaning is the art of, minimalizing the stuff that you have before you die, so that you don't leave it to your family members to like go through your house and have to like deal with your hoarding issue.
Yeah.
I mean, people don't think about these things, but it's not easy leaving this earthly realm. There's stuff, right? There's paperwork, there's physical objects, there's estates, and all these kind of things. So I help with the practical and pragmatic stuff too. Signposting how to fill out a death certificate, and just giving the information around, you have to give, like, for example, to close accounts, like to close bank accounts and things like that, you need like proof that the person has died, and you need the original death certificate. And you can't make copies of that. It has to be the original one. So oftentimes you have to get many originals, like 7. Send them out to the institutions. And so they don't make it very easy to exit this earthly plane, let me tell you. So as a death doula, we can help with that kind of thing too. Because what happens is a person will like lose their loved one, their mom will die, and they're the only one who's there to support or to deal with all of the estate. And imagine that you're grieving, you're totally bereaved from the shock of your parent dying. And then all of a sudden, on top of all that grief, you have to do all of this arduous paperwork, and like you don't know where to start. So a death doula can come in and say, let me help you with that. That's cool. This is what you need to do. This is where you need to get these things. And so that's super helpful for a grieving family. Because who wants to do bloody paperwork when you're like totally beside yourself with grief? It's hard enough to just keep it together, let alone go to work to have to do all of those things. So that's kind of the zones of the death doula.
Yeah, that's quite a lot.
And it changes per person, right?
Yeah.
Different. It's different per person. For some, you're with a lengthy journey with them. For some people, it's 1 or 2 sessions and that's it. Or, you get called in to help with just for a day, or it's always different. So it's really flexible. It's a very adaptable role.
Yeah, I think it's the subject, the topic of death is really, it's quite a taboo topic. And even if it's not taboo, people don't really talk about death because it's somewhere over there, and I'm not saying people should think about death on a daily basis, of course not, because then, you don't want to get into that space, but it is coming for everyone at some point in time, and that point in time you don't know unless, like you said, you're given a prognosis and you're given a time frame, and even then sometimes that may not happen within that time frame, or it may go on for, if you're given a time frame of 3 months, it may go on for 2 years. Even that's not 100% definite. So this is why I really wanted to talk about the topic of death, because I want people to start not thinking about their death, but just thinking about it in a very different way. And I don't know, the questions I want to ask you is, how do you start even bringing that into your life, the thought of your own death, in the sense that, you don't know when that's going to happen? And is it something that you should be thinking about?
I think it's really healthy to reflect upon death every day,
Mm-hmm.
and not in a morbid, suicidal ideation kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in just a very rooted, anchored, this is reality kind of way. In fact, I think the more you reflect upon death, or your own death, the better you live, because you realize that we have such a fleeting amount of time here. It is so impermanent, and it is so beautiful too. It has its ups and downs.
Yeah.
But in knowing that there is a final day, that you will have your final breath, it does make you realize how magical and incredible and how improbable it is that we are here having this experience. In fact, I've talked to clients before who do have fixations with death in more like suicidal ideation kind of ways, and have been able to help them move from seeing life as something to escape to seeing life as something to embrace, by looking at how improbable it is that we are here. And that is an absolute miracle that we are actually here.
Yeah.
And to waste that on an exit, early exit, could, be something that, in fact, lessens the quality of their life.
Yeah.
And so if we have simple reflections every day on the fact that, we're not here for very long, it can bring you into the present moment with more awareness and more connectivity. Even the mundane becomes much more gilded with gold. The mundane, just from having a walk and passing by a rose bush, could feel like a monumental event.
Yeah.
Where you can sit and be with the wonder and the beauty of the roses that appear on that bush, and just realize that this is actually quite amazing. You see, we get so caught up in our day-to-day thinking, chattering, stressed out minds that we often don't see just how incredible this world is around us. In fact, I see it. I see people who have been given a grave prognosis of not long to live, and all of a sudden they wake up to life.
Wow.
I didn't notice how beautiful that tree in my back garden was. I didn't realize how important my relationships with my children are. All of a sudden it's like the coin drops, because being given shocking news like that can often shift people's perspectives, and the veil lifts and they're like, wow, life. Yeah. And if you run the science on this too, how improbable it is that we exist, it's crazy. It literally is impossible that you are here right now, that I am here right now, that everyone who's watching or listening to this, it's improbable. So like, you literally are a miracle, a walking miracle. And this experience and perceiving the life and having these experiences with family, with friends, even with enemies, is absolutely the game of life. It is absolutely stunning. So when we reflect on our death every single day, it brings us into the forefront, and we say, right, let's make the most of this day. Let's do something. Let's experience something. Let's learn something. Let's love. Let's love big, big. Don't forget to tell people that you love them, you appreciate them.
Yeah.
These things become the most important thing. And also, you clean up your house as you go. You try to live a more connected, loving, and meaningful life because you know it's so fleeting and impermanent. And that's what happens too at end of life. Lots of folks I've talked to, they have regrets. They say, I wish I didn't have a grudge. I wish I didn't hold that bitterness towards my brother. He died and we didn't make amends. You know, these little things become the most important things when you're facing your final day.
Yeah.
It's not the Lamborghini. It's not like the supermodel girlfriends that you dated. It's not all the lovers or the mistresses that you had. It's not the, the $1 billion that you have in your bank account. It's really the interpersonal connections that you have with other people. It's what you carried, and your legacy becomes what the energy you put out into this world. Your legacy becomes how well you lived.
Yeah.
So these reflections every single day can make you lay on your deathbed and beam with a big smile, instead of sit there with trepidation and fear and go, oh my God, I fucked up my life.
Yeah.
Or so many people, or I did all these things. So that, I think that's the way forward.
Do you think, yeah, I mean, that's even made me think. I mean, I do think about death quite often. I don't mean not every day, but I do sometimes think, and I easily forget as well, and then get into that wheel of negativity, or perhaps someone's pissed me off and I've been like, oh, and that kind of thing. And then it takes me some time to get back and think, hold on, I'm here for I don't know how long. Just leave it. Enjoy the things that I have, and so on. But it's interesting you say that. One thing I really want to touch upon is, and that I feel like it's on the increase, people having suicidal thoughts, especially with children as well now, for various reasons. And I didn't realize that you play a part in that as well, and you can do to help clear those thoughts and take them out of that situation. Am I right in saying what I've just said?
Well, I don't specifically deal with people who are suicidal. They've come to me because they see Death Doula and they think, well, I have this thing with this fixation with death and my own death and making it happen sooner rather than later. So I've had people reach out to me who have that. But I've also had people reach out to me who've had near-death experiences and they want to chat about their experiences. So sometimes the role of the Death Doula is just, you have people coming to you around the theme of death, right, in general. So even though my training was not specifically geared towards, suicide intervention or near-death experiences, I do have, I'm a graduate of the Olive Trust in transpersonal psychology. So I am very much aware of how to guide people through those zones of near-death experiences or suicidal, tendencies. Yeah, it's just that they've come into my sphere. You come into my sphere. But yeah, it is on the rise. There's a lot of people who struggle with depression, and also in young people as well. And, I see these as symptoms of a sick society and an ailing Western system. Why are our children having depressive and suicidal thoughts? Why? Why are, young men or men in their 30s seem to be the people in society who do this? Why is that happening? So, I just look back to I just look at the system that is creating these sort of zones of unhappiness and depression. And it can be, part of the mix. So it's complex. Family systems are also part of the mix as well. And also people can, there could be hormonal issues, or there could be neurodiversity that's part of the play, mental health issues. It's complex. It's complex, but yeah.
Yeah. You talk about trans something psychology. Sorry, what was that?
Transpersonal.
Transpersonal psychology. Can you just explain what that means?
Yeah, transpersonal. So it's beyond the person. So it's transpersonal is it's like taking into consideration all of a person's experiences, not just through the lens of traditional psychology.
Mm-hmm.
It takes into account the person's dreams. So the types of dreams that they're having, dream work is a big part of transpersonal psychology. Mm-hmm. It takes into account also a person's spiritual leanings or mystical connections. Some people have experiences that are non-ordinary experiences of consciousness. It could be that they, feel like they had a paranormal experience that changed their life. Perhaps their dead grandmother visited them in an experience that changed the course of their life. Mm. It can be, encompasses all of those zones as well, of parapsychology and the zones of mysticism. Mm. And transpersonal psychology holds space for those types of experiences too. Because in conventional psychology, people would be stigmatized as towards like, no, that didn't happen. It doesn't fit within the model or the framework of science. So there's no way you had that experience. Yet the person is like, it changed my life. Like it healed me, or it changed the course of my life. It was one of the biggest markers I've had in my life.
Yeah.
Near-death experiences is part of that too. So as in transpersonal therapy or psychology, we sit with a person and say, yes, please tell me more about your near-death experience and how that's changed your life. Let's work with it and process it and integrate it. And we would sit with people who feel like they've had mystical experiences or even psychedelic experiences that have changed the course of their life and say, let's talk about it, let's process it and integrate it and see how it can bring you into a cohesive whole so you can move forward in life a more empowered person. So it's not, it's very unlike traditional psychology.
Yeah.
Where there could be talking therapy and talking points, and it's more rooted in maybe Freudian analysis. So transpersonal psychology takes into consideration lots of different types of modules that people learn and heal. So I do art therapy with my my clients. I also do integrative therapy through dream work. So it's more creative approaches to therapy, meditation as well, coming into the present moment, reflective practices. So it's very different from traditional psychiatry in that aspect.
So I guess it's not kind of like being labeled as being X. When sometimes when you see a psychotherapist or a psychologist, sometimes you end up being labeled as something, which may not be the case, or you're prescribed something because they think you're whatever that might be.
That's right.
It's a very, very different approach, which...
Yes, it's more holistic. It's a holistic approach. It's also a creative approach. It is a person-centered approach as well. So you don't just write off a prescription and say you need to get onto this antidepressant.
Yeah.
So folks who come and sit with me, they're more attracted to these sort of holistic approaches, and a lot of them are attracted to Jungian psychology and dream work and creativity as well. So it seems as though that aligns a lot with the type of people who sit and have sessions with me.
Yeah. You talk about psychedelics. Can you explain that? Because I'm just asking you for kind of definitions and explanations, because not everyone knows about these things. This is fairly new to me as well, and not the dream side of things. I want to get into that, but I would love to have a different conversation with you, a longer one about dreams, but we can touch upon that as well.
Yeah, so I'm a graduate of the program for transpersonal psychology with psychedelics and altered states of consciousness with the Isle of Trust here in the UK. And so psychedelic assisted therapy is a thing. It's become a lot more accepted in the last, I guess, 10 years, maybe 15 years. Mm-hmm. But, we do still have the laws of our local governments that keep it really at bay.
Yeah.
But there's been a lot of very, very prominent studies that have been done, scientific studies that have been done that shown the great potential for psychedelic assisted therapy with helping with a myriad of problems and concerns for the human condition, including depression, end of life distress, healing, trauma, PTSD, all these sort of zones. Mm. And so with psychedelic assisted therapy, it's about being in a safe container with guides who are trained to do this sort of work and given a high dose of a psychedelic compound to bring the person into a altered state of consciousness, which makes it much easier to access trauma or access what's going on in the deep unconscious, and also sometimes enough to dissolve the boundaries between someone's depression, crippling depression, and a sense of being free from that depression. Because you see what happens with ingesting a psychedelic compound is that neurologically, the default mode network of the brain is shut down. And that part of the brain is what can be the hardwired reactions to trauma, to overthinking, to stress, to anxiety, to overthinking. And with that filter being shut down, a person's consciousness can then start to think and feel and perceive beyond the mind. Mm-hmm. The word psychedelic means mind manifesting. So you're literally given different vantage points. And often that's enough for a person to come out of a psychedelic experience and say, oh my God, why was I so stuck in on that thing?
Yeah.
Of that worry, of that depression, or why was I holding on to that trauma so unconsciously like that? So it can be really helpful for getting out of your mind into this different place. Now, sometimes with some of these psychedelics as well, it's almost as though you are communing with another consciousness. And that's to be said, especially for some of these entheogens, which are psychedelic plants. And one of them being ayahuasca, which is a psychedelic brew from the Amazon, which is comprised of 2 different plants combined, made into this liquid, this brew, a tea that is consumed. And when a person takes ayahuasca, they feel as though they're actually communing with an intelligence or the plant consciousness.
Okay.
That is there, speaking to them, guiding them through things, showing them different things, aspects of your life. It could be like why you keep having repeat terrible relationships, toxic romantic relationships. So that could be something that comes up. Mm-hmm. And then this plant consciousness shows you the root cause of why you have that pattern in life. I'm just giving an example.
Yeah.
And so some psychedelics will have a feeling of being with another intelligence. Mm-hmm. The mushrooms as well, psilocybin sometimes has that too. It feels as though the mushrooms have a personality and they're speaking to you and showing you things. They're your guide or your therapist for the session. Mm-hmm. And often people come out of a psychedelic assisted therapeutic session and feel like they've had 25 years of therapy in one session. And they'll often say, well, I've had more breakthrough with that session than I have in like 10 years of therapy or whatever. Mm-hmm. And it can be life-changing, a game changer. There is life before a psychedelic assisted therapy session and life after. And I can contest because I worked with ayahuasca for 2 years, many times over a 2-year period, and it changed my life for the better. I was able to access deep-seated unconscious trauma and wounds through taking that plant medicine. I was literally brought to prenatal events. I mean, things that you could not access in
Wow.
traditional modern Western therapy.
Yeah.
There's no way,
Yeah.
unless you went to some sort of regressive therapy through meditation or something, but it might take a long time to be able to get that deep.
Mm.
So amazing, amazing stuff. So yeah, that is the zone of psychedelic assisted therapy. It's not for everyone. Not everyone feels comfortable
Mm.
with this sense of absolute, you have no control. You are literally in the abyss. You are
Right.
literally like in another zone or realm. And often you experience an ego death, and a lot of people aren't comfortable with that. But I feel like an ego death is really healthy. It
Yeah.
does change you for the better, because you emerge, you're not so concerned with the me thing, and
Yeah.
you come out feeling a lot more altruistic and seeing everything from a bigger picture, and everything's connected, and my actions have consequences, cause and effect.
Yeah.
It changes you in a way that is so deeply profound. But I don't feel like it changes you. It just brings you back to what your fullest potential is, who you really, really are, in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. And are there any like risks or anything associated with it? Like for like I know it's something, I mean, I've looked into it and like different, not in detail, but I've heard about certain aspects of it. And when I read some of the things, like some of the things that you touched upon, it kind of not freaks me out, but it makes me feel uncomfortable. And
Yeah.
I want to do it, but I don't want to do it,
I
that kind of thing. And I don't know why I feel like that, but
Well, it is uncomfortable.
yeah,
It's not it's not entertaining. Like
yeah,
sometimes people hear, oh, psychedelics, oh cool, go on this light show. It'll be all
yeah.
like wings of light and like woo. It's not. Like, it's the
Yeah.
hardest thing I've ever done in my life.
Right.
It is hard work. You get taken to realms of deep pain with visuals. It is like the closest thing I can, it's like having a near death experience. I'm not going to lie.
Mm.
It's like you feel like you are dying. You feel like you are being reborn as well. So
Mm.
there's real depths of difficulties, the depths of human sorrow and horror, but then you're also brought out into a transcendence as well. You got the dichotomy of the two. It's not easy going. It's a rough ride. And also, well, some people, like my partner, he also sat and drank ayahuasca in one session with me, and it was transcendent for him the entire time. So I mean, they say the plant will give you what you need, but it should be, really research it before if you want to go into those zones, and people feel called to do it. I knew that it was going to be challenging, and part of it too is that you are also purging. Like, there's vomiting involved, and sometimes there's like, it coming out the other end as well, and that's
Yeah.
part of the process. It's like a purification or purging. And when you're vomiting, it's not like you're just vomiting because you're drunk. You're
Yeah.
vomiting, and you're being shown what you are releasing. That's your self-loathing. That is your fear of love. That is your, like, it gets very specific, with each vomit, energetically, what was being held in your body. It's physically tough going. It's about 8 or 9 hours under the influence of, it's a long time.
Wow. Yeah.
And you're laid out on your back. You don't even know what realm you're in. Like, you're literally taken away to a completely other place.
Yeah.
And you can't move or walk around. There's no moving or walking around. It's in different traditions. It's different depending on the doses. So some traditions in South America, people are standing up and they're dancing around, and some of the churches, ayahuasca churches. But in traditional Amazonian, with the ayahuasqueros, you're literally in a circle and you're laying down. And yeah, so it's not an easy ride, but people do get called. I've really felt deeply called to do this.
Mm.
I heard about ayahuasca in the 90s, and then read a book in 2000, early 2000. And I knew, I was like, I have to go and do that one day. And yeah, the opportunity came up, and I worked with it for 2 years. But I was at a point where I felt like I need to do some inner work. Nothing got deep to to why I was holding deep sorrow within me. I just couldn't access it. I had no idea why. I was walking through life feeling like almost like a heavy mantle of sorrow that I just could not shift through any kind of uh, traditional means. And I was shown where it came from. I was shown very clearly. Went to the prenatal events of my mother, and being in there, it was very ancestral, and it cleared it. It cleared the line. It was absolutely a game changer. And after having that experience, it changed my relationship to my mother. Like the sorrow lifted, a joy appeared in my life. Like it was like night and day. It was like night and day. So some of us get called to do it. I felt called to do it because I couldn't understand why. I had so much sorrow. Why? And a lot of people can't believe. They're like, Tree, really? You had like, you seem like such a happy, like I've always had joy. I always felt like, but it just felt like this other thing was just held so heavy on me that I just, I could have moments of like my mischievous pixie-like joy that I have, but there was this other thing. But so psychedelic therapy was the way for me. It's not for everyone, but I say use your intuition. And research and know what it's like. And there are risks too, physically, like people who have heart conditions, or if they're, you're on antidepressants, or there's a lot of different things that would disqualify you from working with the plant medicine. You'd have to be, you have to make sure you.
Of course.
And there's a lot of instruction. If you do go to like a center in the Netherlands for ayahuasca, which is a good safe container to do that sort of therapy, they will give you all of the measures before you arrive of what you can and cannot do. Because there's preparation, there's a diet, there beforehand, and there's meticulous. You have to take it really seriously because your body, it's a very psychedelic experience. It's literally DMT, dimethyltryptamine. It's like the most psychedelic compound on planet Earth, So it's like you have no sense of control over yourself.
I guess there are other things aside from that people can do in the psychedelic world. It's not just that thing. If someone wanted to like do something that's less intensive, is that
not? Yeah, it is. So I was still working around transpersonal psychology with psychedelic assisted therapy, but also altered states of consciousness. So that's good because that's light. You don't have to do the psychedelics. So altered states of consciousness, I can help support people in the space of dreams and dream work, because effectively dreams are altered state of consciousness in the state of sleep. You're in an altered state because you're in the sleep cycle, but your consciousness is still having experiences, and they're called dreams. And so I help people through those altered states of consciousness, dream work. I also help, breath work is also a zone in which you can achieve an altered state of consciousness. Meditation, you can achieve an altered state of consciousness through meditation as well. And so those are zones too. Trance work, doing trance work could be anything from scrying, like into a scrying mirror, or sound that can put you into a trance-like state. And so I use all of those tools and modules as well to help people who want to go more the light method, light as in, light bite. And it's not like full on psychedelic. I also have this amazing dream machine. It's called a Leva light, and it's like a strobe light where you can lay underneath this lamp with your eyes closed, and it will pull you into an altered state of consciousness, your brain waves will want to match the strobotropic effects of the light.
Oh, wow.
And it slows down your brain waves and you go into a dreamlike state. And that's a really relaxing session with a bit of sound. And under a session like that, you can achieve a lot too. Yeah. So there's a lot of different ways you can get into an altered state of consciousness.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I think for me, it would probably starting off in the less intensive way and then moving on to maybe.
Yes, totally.
Yeah. But that, you know, that's just me because, yeah, that's who I am. But I wanted to ask about the dream thing really quickly. And I would love to do another podcast with you specifically on dreams because it totally fascinates me. I dream a lot. Like, I'm a dreamer. I remember my dreams most of the time when I wake up. But then, like, an example, my husband thinks he never dreams because when he wakes up, he doesn't remember any of his dreams. What's the difference? Like, does he dream or not? Or am I just like dreaming? I'm sure he dreams, but he just can't remember it. And I'm not going to go into the detail of, you know, you trying to tell me what dreams mean, but can you just give a very quick overview of this whole dreaming thing?
Yeah, dreams. I mean, we all have them every night. Some of us don't remember them, but that's more to do with dream memory recall than it does to anything else.
Right.
We always dream. In fact, in our sleep cycle through the night, you know, we have so many times through the night that we're dreaming, specifically in our REM cycle. That's where most of the dreaming takes place. But then we'll have dreaming as well on the threshold states of the hypnagogic state just before sleep and the hypnopompic state just as we're waking up. So we'll have liminal dreaming there too. So, I mean, it's a really great zone to be in an altered state of consciousness and to receive messages from the unconscious realms. Dreams are fascinating explorations of you and your own psyche, and a really great chance to get to know yourself more, or also a great zone to heal or work out problems. You can be creative too. Dreams are great muses for creativity as well. And, you know, they happen every night. So it's like, what's not so great about that? I mean, it's like having, you know, your unconscious can be your therapist. Yeah. That's guiding you towards a more balanced waking life. And so, you know, with dreaming and getting connected to your dreams, it's just about having an intention like, oh, this is cool. I want to remember my dreams more. I'd like to start working with them actually to enrich my life in some kind of way. So the best thing to do is just start off with an intention. I'm going to remember my dreams and work with them, and just say that as you go to sleep. And then the next thing to do is just start recording your dreams, taking record of them. It could be like through Dream Journal or an app. And the more you start writing down your dreams and recording them, this triggers more dreams, or it seems to help with your dream memory recall. It improves your memory. And then there's more and more dreams. Yeah. And then, like, literally, if you did a month of dream recording and you read back on a month of dream work, it'd be like, wow, look what was going on. This is what's going on in my unconscious. This is really cool. And you might be able to start to connect the dots with threads of themes. Like, for example, if you keep having stressy work dreams where you're like nightmares at work, and there could be a big message there that maybe your work environment is not doing well for you. Yeah. And maybe there's something that you can improve in your waking time. Could it be find another job or cut back hours, or, you know, so there's huge messages in the dreams to help support us every single night. So those are just some ways to kick off a dreaming practice. Yeah.
Yeah. That's great. I never thought about actually writing down what I'm dreaming about. So yeah, I think that's something that will really be interesting. Yeah, I have some wild and wacky dreams sometimes, and I really wonder, I think, God, I don't want to tell anyone about that dream.
Oh my God. Dream groups. And I always do these dream journeys with like every so season or whatever. And I'll have a 4-week journey of dream work, and we'll be working with a specific plant, because there's different plants called winorogens that if you drink them as tea, they help really stimulate your dreams. And so we'll do 4-week journeys, and I'll always just take 10 students at a time, or 10 dreamers at a time. So it's a really close-knit group. And for 4 weeks, we're all sharing dreams. gets, it's great. It's like we don't even have to watch David Lynch films because we're just like hearing about each other's dreams every you know what I mean? But
Wow.
if anyone's interested in that sort of thing as a group, that also helps to bolster up your practice and helps you move deeper if you have a supportive environment for dream work. So I'm always doing things like that, and it's always online, so people can tune in and do the practice.
Absolutely. I think, look, you have a plethora of books available on lots of different topics and lots of amazing stuff on your website. So if anyone wants to find out more about what you do, more about dreams, more about psychedelics, more about, there's so much stuff you do. We didn't even get into the kind of witch stuff yet.
Oh yeah, there's that too.
Yeah, exactly. But there is, there's a lot here. And I feel like I'd love to do another podcast with you talking deep about dreams and obviously the witch stuff as well, because we didn't really quite cover that. But if anyone is interested, have a look at the Tree's website. It's got everything on there, and there's so many amazing books on there as well. With that, I would love to, thank you so much, Tree. It's been a pleasure to have you on and learn about all these amazing things. It's definitely given me a lot of information and curiosity to look at and explore other ways that I can kind of guide myself through the changes that I'm having and the journey that I'm going through, and I think it's so important, like you said, for people to see what they're doing, what journey they're going through, and if they resonate with anything that you're doing, just look into it, do your research. And the important thing is, if you do decide to go down the psychedelic thing, make sure you're with the trusted person that you're with, and it's not some kind of dodgy person that drives you down this path of, whatever you may come out as. But yeah, thank you, Tree. Thank you so much for being on the Empower podcast. It's been amazing to have you on.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure, and I'll be back.
Yes, you will.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to Empower Her. I hope today's episode has left you feeling inspired and motivated to make a positive difference in your world. Please follow the podcast and share it with anyone who will find it helpful. Until next time, keep striving for positive change and greatness for all women.